I was out yesterday, so today I'm going to get caught up on Trump's 2024 presidential announcement, the missile that landed in NATO territory, the Republican majority in the House, and the ongoing tech industry layoffs. I'm Michele Carroll. Welcome to the News Diet, where I give you to-the-point news Monday through Thursday.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
The midterm results aren't even fully completed yet, and already the 2024 campaigns have begun. On Tuesday, Donald Trump announced at his Florida Mar-a-Lago resort that he would be running for president again, which isn't a huge surprise to anyone, but is definitely very early considering we're still 2 years away. And with Trump being one of the most polarizing figures in politics, he carries a lot of baggage with him into this campaign that he didn't have before. His controversial personality aside, he's still facing criminal investigations, falling poll numbers, and increasing Republican competition. Starting with the investigations, Trump is still facing 3 legal challenges. One federal investigation regarding his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results, another federal investigation into government documents kept at his Florida estate, and also a state investigation in Florida also over the 2020 elections. If he were to become president again, then the future of the federal investigations could be up in the air, considering possible presidential privileges and influence. But 2 years is a pretty long time from now, and I imagine the investigations are aiming to wrap up by then. So to run a campaign with these legal challenges hovering, and all of them regarding his previous time in office, will add a layer that he didn't have to worry about the last 2 campaigns. Then there's the recent poll numbers showing that for the first time in years, his popularity has been upstaged, and that's by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. DeSantis has become a Republican favorite in just the last few months, and his popularity gained massive momentum last week as his governor seat was secured after winning by a margin of 1.5 million votes, which is the largest majority of any Florida governor in 40 years. He was one of the only Republican standouts of the midterms, as other GOP races performed way under expectations. He's gained a lot of momentum with not just Floridians, but also conservatives across the country, and his pushback on COVID restrictions, his banning of sexual identity teachings in schools, as well as by implementing abortion restrictions, and also by criticizing migration policies by sending illegal migrants to Democratic states. In other words, his agenda is publicly anti-woke, which has caught the attention of both the media and conservatives. The narrative over much of this year has been one of Trump versus DeSantis, with Trump usually coming out on top until now. According to the Club for Growth poll, DeSantis has overtaken Trump 48% to 37% in Iowa, 52% to 37% in New Hampshire, 56 to 30 in Florida, and 55 to 35 in Georgia. And in another poll by CWS Research, DeSantis now beats Trump in Texas by 11 points. Just last month, Trump was favored by 17 points. Trump even called out DeSantis in his speech by saying, quote, "I would tell you things about him that won't be very flattering. I know more about him than anybody, other than perhaps his wife." DeSantis is being called an alternative to the tumultuous Trump era, but it's not entirely clear how this narrative will pan out. While Trump's numbers may be weakening, he still has a very loyal base who are enthusiastic about another presidential run. So when it comes to the next elections, the Republican Party will have to somehow figure out an identity between staunch MAGA and those hoping to move in a different direction. Before moving on to the next story, I just want to ask if you can hit that subscribe button so you can continue to get notifications on new episodes and follow along as the News Diet grows. Military and government leaders had a big scare on Tuesday as Poland, a NATO member, experienced a missile landing within its borders, killing 2 people. This is a big deal because if this missile was shown to come from Russian forces, this would technically mean an attack had been engaged on NATO, which would open up the Ukraine-Russia conflict to include all member nations, including the US, much of Europe, and Canada. This is a situation that all parties have been trying to avoid since day one. To likely everyone's relief, yesterday, Poland's president revealed that there was no evidence that this missile was an act of war. He said, quote, "There is nothing, absolutely nothing to suggest that this was an intentional attack on Poland. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and NATO members backed that claim, saying that while the missile did appear to be Russian-made, that it was likely an accidental launch from Ukrainian forces who do use some Russian weaponry. Ukrainian President Zelensky denied that it was their missile, but did ask for participation in the investigation to make sure. He even added that if the evidence did point to a mistake on their end, then, quote, "we need to apologize." Republicans have won majority of the House now over a week after Election Day. Yesterday, they reached the 218 seats needed to gain a majority, which means that now Congress is split, with the Democrats holding their majority in the Senate and Republicans in the House. There's still 5 seats left to determine how wide this margin will be. Obviously, the wider the margin, the more control over congressional votes Republicans will or won't have. Last week, I talked about the mass layoffs hitting the tech world as many big tech names are coming to the realization that their pandemic expansions are no longer sustainable. The industry went on a hiring spree in 2021 and even much of this year, with tech jobs being very readily available and very lucrative for talent. But now, with consumers cutting back on spending, companies are finding the need to cut back on theirs as well, which for some means reducing their workforce. I talked about the announcements by Meta to lay off 1,000 employees, Snap about 6,000, Salesforce over 2,100, Stripe 1,100, Microsoft about 1,000, and then of course Twitter, who saw the release of about 3,700 workers after Elon Musk cleaned house. Well, the layoffs are continuing into this week, with Amazon announcing yesterday their plans to lay off about 10,000 jobs, and Cisco announcing about a 5% downsize. The digital finance industry in particular is seeing a trend of layoffs, with online finance app Robinhood cutting 23% of its employees, Coinbase laying off about 1,100, and digital real estate broker Redfin reducing about 13% of its workforce, as real estate markets are now facing high interest rates and still high property prices. Signs and speculation of an upcoming economic recession have been floating around for much of this year, but some data points, such as the low rates of unemployment, have given authorities reason to avoid that classification. But with the news of tens of thousands of employees being let go all at the same time just in this one industry, we'll have to see if there's any updates on the economic outlook. You've just been informed, so now it's time to get on with your day. I'm Michele Carroll. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode and want to continue following a healthier alternative for staying informed, where I forgo partisan fighting and fear-driven narratives and just get to the point, then please be sure to hit that subscribe button, as of course you'll get more of this show in your feed, and also you'll be helping this new channel grow and reject sensational media. Thank you so much for your support, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.